friends that I have a very pleasant duty now. Say, though it says presidential remarks, it should really be a few words of thanks to Professor Vaidyanathan. I have no presidential, which implies wise words to conclude on great wisdom and wit Professor Vaidyanathan shared with us. Now, I also totally agree with them about authorship and recommending the purchase of books written by the author. So, along with his books, sometimes think of my books also. I would also like to repeat how much wit Professor Vaidyanathan and how much good sense in what he shared with us this evening. He's right. The axis of economic power has shifted. And that has to be a recognition in India principally. It was purely a chance that Prime Minister Vajpayee told me, you better now go across the road and move from South Block to North Block. I did plead with him that I'm not an economist, I'm not trained as an economist. I have very little interest in economics except trying to make money. He said, this discussion went on for about 15 days until friends told me it's very bad policy to argue with prime ministers, you better go across. So I walked across from South Block to North Block. There was a posse of correspondents at the entrance to North Block who asked me, and I hadn't thought of it, it was impromptu, who asked me, "Aapki policy kya hai?" Now I hadn't thought of any answer to give to these highly intelligent correspondents who know all the answers. So I said, मेरी पॉलिसी है कि गृहिणी की टुकिया में आना और गरीब के पेट में दाना. Yes, I just say, but if you, I would like to attribute this sentence to the wisdom that Professor Vaidyanathan has demonstrated, because that really is the essence of what we are trying to achieve. Grahani ki tukiya mein aana. It's not a sexist remark. It is a recognition that women have a tactile sense of money. Men don't have that. So they must always have money wherever they keep it. So that the purchasing power of the household continues to be where it should be. And Professor Vaidyanathan is entirely right. Is the center of gravity of the economic strength has of course shifted from Europe to Asia along with many other things. But it is the Indian woman who is really the stable and the central core of our savings and stability and family savings. I do want to thank Professor Vaidyanathan for observing that he's kept a minister waiting. I'd like to tell him that I'm really in India, nothing is as an ex-minister. So as an ex-minister, I have no illusion of what I am. And
are you a minister in waiting? No.
You are a future minister, that is why.
No, minister in waiting.
Now I don't want to take too much time after that extremely wise address that we have had benefited from. But the question that arises is what ails our economy today? I've been endeavoring to find an answer to this, and I come to an answer very often that is, we have no economic deficiency. The present government has more economists than any other government, past or future. Now there is a lesson to be learned from this. Friends, I did work in the North Block for some time, but I learned two sentences. One is from Truman, who said, please give me a one-handed economist as an advisor. Because I hope Prasad will forgive me. But economists are given to saying on the one hand and on the other hand. For the non-economist, this is very difficult to decide. The other is a rather flippant remark. I toyed with the idea of doing it unless the officers in the Ministry of Finance nearly went on revolt. I said, I'm going to put a board outside my office saying, men at work, economists, please stay away. The officer said, don't do that, sir, because none of the economists are here. I wish to share with you. I think there is a sound and a very fine, I don't want to call it indigenous, but I do wish to call it Indian or Hindu economic philosophy. And I think the philosophy that innately inhabits all Indians is firstly, we are enjoined, and it's our dharma not in the sense of ritual or puja, it's our dharma to produce the maximum that we can. If you are a farmer, if you are a goldsmith, it's our dharma to produce the maximum and produce the best quality. Then it's our dharma to share. As children in the village, we were told when the food came that this is for the bird, this is for the cows, this is for the village Brahmin, this is dog. You must share. The third is you must save. And the fourth is that you must also, from your saving, give something to charity. And these are, at least in rural India, at least in Rajasthan, continue to be the guiding principles. I don't know what is wrong with these principles. I think they are very sound economic principles. And I do get very confused when, I hope you'll forgive me, when I hear very wise economists going into formulae and all kinds of complicated solutions for what is. What we need is a recognition, which you have yourself said. We are not an export-driven economy. Our economy's strength is on internal consumption. Make the consumption by our citizens easier. If your supply side glitches are such that what needs is not available and you have highly centralized everything, then prices will go up. It's a complicated question and we need to address it. Professor Vaidyanathan told us about the shift of the global center of gravity. The 20th century was the century of Europe. If you examine, it's a very colonial economy, it's a very colonial energy, but Europe certainly had excess energy, and that excess energy resulted in colonizing almost every continent on the globe. But along with colonizing the excess energy of the European civilization, which is undoubtedly a great civilization, due to the Renaissance, it has destroyed the indigenous in the two Americas. It has destroyed the indigenous in Australia, and it has destroyed the indigenous in Africa. It came very close to destroying whatever we are in India. And I believe that if we survive the depredations of the colonizing powers of 20th century, now that era is over. Its reality is over. And what India has to recognize, what our governments have to recognize, is that we are no longer dependent on the so-called global forces. I entirely support and endorse what Professor Radinathan has said. It is the Western countries which should now need our assistance. We must therefore have what is sometimes called the animal spirit, revive the animal spirit in India. The Indian citizen must stand up, not as a mendicant, but as a giver, because it is part of our dharma to share, to give. When I was given this responsibility, I found that we were receiving aid. It was called aid or monetary support. Can you explain to me what we accept this? So there is no reason, but it's just been continued. Now this is true, absolutely true. And I'm not boasting about it. I called for the piece of paper and I said, from next month 1st of date, please stop taking aid from all these countries. Now it is. We stopped.
Yeah.
There was huge furore in these embassies. Complaints were made about me to the Prime Minister. He's too arrogant. He stopped taking our aid. But I don't need the aid. So that finally, एक साल पूरा कर लीजिए, फिर बंद करिए. By that time, I was thrown out by you good ladies and gentlemen from office and sitting in opposition. I don't know what the situation now is. We don't need this aid. And if we don't need this aid, then we will stand up on our own, and we don't need the global institutions. This center of gravity of the Western world is earlier in Europe, and it has caused so much loss, 2 great wars. This is now ended. The center of gravity has shifted to India. We need to recognize where we are, and we need to recognize the innate strength as a country, but for doing that, we have to let the individual citizen free. Don't arrest the citizen's growth. Don't arrest the citizen's thinking. That is my very pleasant duty, Professor Radinathan, for great wisdom that you shared with us. Wisdom that is combined with such wonderful wit. I must express my very grateful thanks to you on behalf of the institution, as also on my personal behalf. Thank you very much, Professor
We have to in 60s we have taken loans from IMF and World Bank.
I have to interrupt. Unfortunately, the professor is not taking a class just now.
But you must have a question answer series.
Why do we love
I don't have a lecture without a question answer.
Well, I wish I could do it. I'm not on the control.
You can interact with the professor after. We have not
I
kept
will attempt at any time. Here in the hall, I won't have.
We can
question
take
answer.
one question.
No. He has some other engagement.
So we have to respect. We have to respect the chair. Thank you
Mr.
so much.
Black President, you have a lecture, you have to answer.
Okay.
Okay, do it today.
I don't want charity. I was just talking. Yes, do please ask your question.
Please. Can I ask the
No, I don't want
professor?
to answer the question. You want to move.
Can I ask the professor?
Well, I'm sorry if your question was moody.
Yeah, please. Professor, on the BRICS issue, would you like to say something?
Huh?
On the BRICS.
What is that?
BRICS.
BRICS is what? Some people put up some acronym and it is neither official nor, one of my students is also involved. They like these acronym and everybody jumps. See, Russia, I am telling you, in that BRIC, right? 100 Russians, 85 Russians is going to be remaining in another 7 years. Russia is going away. Where is BRIC?
You think we can take the lead and build it up?
Huh?
Can we take the lead and build it up?
We should actually. We should combine with China.
Sir,
Huge one.
since China is a communist country, can we believe it?
You are the only one who is telling China is a communist country. China is not communist. China is like our DTC buses. Indicator to the left, always turn to the right.
One question, in 1960s, we have taken loans from IMF and World Bank due to financial problems. Is it correct move?
No, no. See, most important is we should stop looking at China through the American eyes. Unfortunately, we should be in India having 100 centers studying China. We don't have. Every information about China, the policy formulator, all comes from Britain and US. 100 centers we should have created. Only one center is there, perhaps I think in the university in Delhi.
Thank you, friends.
But,
Nathan is here. He will be here for 10 minutes or so. So you can discuss, we are very grateful to the Vedranathanji, Professor Vedranathan, who has come all the way from Bangalore and delivered the speech. Sir, we are thankful on behalf of the Mookerjee Research Foundation. We are grateful and to our most respected leader, Jaswant Singh ji, who has always the blessings of the Dr. Mookerjee Research Foundation. And we thank to Kananja, Ramakrishnan ji, and Kishore ji for attending the talk. We are thankful to all academicians, students, economists, and the press, media for attending this seminar. Thank you very much to all of you. On behalf of the Syama Mookerjee again, I express my sincere thanks to all of you.
Three.
Good teacher. And half of it I am going to give for some